Direct from Foxborough, Massachusetts, the gem of Norfolk County, and taped at the studios of Foxborough Cable Access. It's Foxborough Central, and here's your host, Bob Hickey.
And thank you for coming to another episode of Foxborough Central. My name is Bob Hickey. I am your host, welcoming you and thanking you for joining us as we talk about the people, events, and organizations that make Foxborough truly the gem of Norfolk County. Joining me today, and I'm sure you remember these from a past episode, are my two guests, Olivia Binks.
Thanks for having us back.
Absolutely, and Jim McGowan. And you are the 2 point people. You're the chairman and the assistant chairman of the Partners in Patriotism Fund, correct?
Chairman and happy board member.
Happy board member, even better. So with that, last time we were here together, we were talking about the beginning, the creation, the first steps of the Partners in Patriotism Fund. And that was almost a year ago, was it not?
It was Columbus Day weekend a year ago.
And okay, and then at the conclusion, I distinctly remember saying, hey, come on back. And now here we are. So in the past year, what has happened, Olivia?
We have been very busy in the past year, and since we've last met, we've had a couple themes that have emerged. So we've gotten lots of applications from around the community, and we've got 3 categories that we've seen. We've helped community groups and organizations.
Okay.
We've been also able to help community projects. Several projects have come through, and then education and athletics. So as we've looked over the past year, those are some of the themes that came through, and it's been really nice to see the broad array that has come from folks all around the community.
Now, Jim, when we first met, we were talking about a brand new idea, and it was published in the Partners in Patriotism newsletter that is sent out on a regular basis by the craft organization. And it's a great way for them to communicate with the community what they're doing, the exciting new things going on up at Patriot Place, at Gillette Stadium, and with the craft organization. But specific to this, we're talking the Patriots and Partners in Patriotism Fund, and you've been the chairman since the beginning. And I know that there have been some highs and some lows, but I want to talk about really what is the growth? What have we learned?
It's been great. It's been really rewarding. It's been fun.
Is there a need for it?
Absolutely. I mean, we're seeing things that, especially on the personal level, that have been really rewarding. You know, personally and as a group, we've come to a real consensus. Most of our grants, you have 13 people deciding on a grant, and we bat them back and forth and talk. In the end, it seems there's a consensus and a feeling of where we are, what we're doing, and it's been really great for everybody.
So I want to talk about the process in a minute, but I also want to give folks a programming note that later in today's episode, you're going to get to see a few stories of some recipients of funding from the Partners in Patriotism Fund. So don't tune out, stay around, because we've got some really cool stories to share with you later on. So before we get to that, let's talk about the process. You're on a board, and there's 13 members of the board?
Yes.
Okay, and it's one of those types of boards that you don't really hear a lot about, because I suppose that means the work is actually happening and some good things are happening. And let's talk about some good things. What's happening?
Absolutely. So a couple highlights. To date, we are at about 60,000 that we've awarded. And
that's a significant amount of money.
It is a significant amount of money. We do have 100,000 that we are allotted for the calendar year, so we're trending really nicely. And a couple highlights, $13,500 in community projects. One great example is the Sam Burns Garden, and we contributed $5,000. That's going to be at the community field, and that's one I think that really so many of us were touched by him, and to see that come through, and his fellow students and other people in the community who are continuing to carry forward his spirit. That was something that we were able to help and continue his memory and what he stood for.
And to show you how, I suppose we'll say ingrained, the Partners in Patriotism Fund has already become, when the 2 young people who were leading that project were in here, they were talking about the donations, and they gave thanks, of course, to the PIP and made special mention that it was such a key piece to put them over the top to make that entire project happen. So. And I know it's not all about recognition, and that's really probably the least of the reasons why any of us do the things we do. But at the same time, it is nice to see some of the blossoms starting to come up from the seeds that are sown. Yeah. So speaking of the seed sower, what sort of interesting things have happened?
The ones that really hit home are the personal assistance things that have happened.
such as?
And we'll talk about one, I think, later on tonight, the Howland family.
Yes.
Who had a personal tragedy that we got an application for. And that was like the quickest discussion we had. It was like, we saw it, we read it, it hit home, and we funded it. And it was that quick. I mean, some grants have long discussions and back and forths, and that one there it was perfect. It was someone in
It really
town
hit home, hit the need.
had a tragedy, unexpected. We were a funding source. They needed it. We were able to provide it. Bringing that check to Mrs. Howland that night was like just a great. That's what we're all about, you know, and it made it really, really hit home.
And we're going to be honored to have Mrs. Howland here a little bit later on today to share with us her story. And I suppose I'll share also my son, Kevin, is an Eagle Scout, and he did a project for the nonprofit organization, the Doolittle Home. And, you know, full disclosure, he applied to the PIP fund and was awarded funding sufficient to cover the entire cost, and through his work, he actually came in pretty under budget, and you didn't want the money back. You made him give it to the Doolittle Home. So that's another generous thing where you're giving the money with no strings. And I don't know if people really understand that. It's really not a cheerleading type thing. It's not a, you know, see us now. It's really a strong commitment by Mr. Kraft and the Kraft organization to give back to the community. I think it's just the most wonderful of types of projects, and how fun it must be. I know it's work, believe me, I know it's work, but how fun it must be to, as you say, be able to give that check out.
It's great. It's great work. It's the times that we meet. I can't wait to come in and roll up our sleeves, and we're all equally passionate about what we're doing, and you know, hearing of the different stories about it's not just a grant comes across and we look at the piece of paper. There are people behind it, and there's a community behind it, and that is what gets us, you know, going together as a group. And then hearing the outcomes just keeps the momentum going.
Nice. And I'm sure a big piece of what you do also is researching, because many times applicants, I'm sure, just aren't aware of other funding sources. And so I'm sure you've had to educate yourself and be able to become an advocate for these applicants, even if it's not money coming from the Partners in Patriotism Fund, because oftentimes there's other funding sources available. And I suppose to create a total, I don't want to call it a total social network, but really to best network and best make sure that people's needs are being met. That's a piece of it also. So it's not just rubber stamping. There's a little bit of research that goes on.
Absolutely.
A little bit.
Sometimes a lot of research, depending on the grants. Some of the grants have all of the information you need to make a decision on them. A lot of times we have to go back, ask questions, vet them to see, especially the personal assistance ones get a little trickier. The ones for Sam Burns Field and stuff like that are pretty basic. There's bids attached to those grants, a lot of them. So those become pretty basic. Some of the other ones, there's a lot more homework to do and verify that they're legitimate and where the funding sources go, because we don't fund individuals. We'll pay the contractor, or we'll pay a group or something like that.
And that seems like a very wise safeguard.
Yeah.
So I'm here with Jim McGowan and Livia Banks with the Partners in Patriotism Fund. And before we talk to Livia about what her favorite project has been so far, I want to remind the public that they too, if you have a need and if you have a community issue that needs funding, or you'd like to explore more, you can contact the Partners in Patriotism Fund by going online. They have an online application process, and it's at www.gillettestadium.com, and then you / the partners-in-patriotism, or you can just click the link, find it, and it'll bring you right to the application page. And I know that the application is it's a paper application, gets filled out, sent in, but I also know that there is response. And as I said, my son participated and was lucky enough to be awarded money and was able to make that project happen. So tell us about your favorite project to date.
I don't think I have a favorite. I think, to be honest, everyone...
It's like children, they all become your favorite.
Yeah, whether it's big or small, I think it's the cumulative effect. You walk out and, we all have charitable and philanthropic efforts that we want to further and help people in the community. But the reality is we can't all open our checkbooks all the time for every cause to the extent that we'd like. The Partners in Patriotism Fund gives us that ability to be some of the arms and legs in the community. And I think that is, personally what drives me is It's not how big or how small it is, you know, impact-wise. It's the fact that we're helping, whether it's further an Eagle Scout project, you know, helping to confidentially support an individual who might be in need, or even, you know, taking a look at the dugouts, right, on the recreation fields. It's all the different ways that we can help and reach out.
Well, I've often said that Foxborough is built on the back of the volunteers, and that's true of civic organizations and the charitable arms, and now we add the Partners in Patriotism Fund to a key piece of the fabric that makes Foxborough a strong community. I'm going to come back to my friend Livia and Jim after we take a moment to listen to some stories of folks who have received benefit of donations from the Partners in Patriotism Fund. So let's all sit back and enjoy these stories. And the Partners in Patriotism Fund also funds community events, and supporting our public library is one of the ways that the Partners in Patriotism Fund has given back to our community. I'm honored to be joined by three of our, we'll call them custodians of the library mission, shall we? Is that fair enough?
All right.
All right, I'm here with Margaret Rossetti, Barbara Massey, and Laurie McGee. I'm sorry, I'm so nervous. I'm not. Actually, I'm not nervous at all because I've seen everybody around, and the library is such a fixture in our community that I think we, and I'm saying me as a citizen, take a lot of the services for granted. So maybe what we can talk about now is how the Partners in Patriotism Fund has funded something important at the library. Why don't we start with you telling us what it is that we're here talking about?
Well, last fall at the November meeting of the Friends of the Boyden Library, toward the end of the meeting, when it came time for new business, Laurie McGee had the wonderful idea that we should do a town-wide reading program for children. And we would call it Foxborough Kids Reads, and that it would be based on the book The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. So we talked about it and did a sort of quick discussion, brainstorming, and decided, wow, we could do all kinds of programs and activities that sort of revolve around the theme and the different happenings in the story of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So that's what we did. And it was actually Barbara who had just seen something having to do...
I just read, I think, the quarterly newsletter from the Patriot Organization, and had found out about the fund, yes,
Right,
Partners in Patriotism, and that there were going to be opportunities for town programs and individuals to apply for funding. And I thought, well, a program that's going to serve potentially all the children in the town, or as many children as want, that might be something they'd be interested in funding.
Now, I, as well as I'm sure many of our viewers, remember the program and looking at it, wow, that's something new and interesting. But of course, the Friends of the Boyden Library is an organization that is quasi, because you're actually raising funds to support some of the programs, because our taxpayer dollars don't nearly cover all of the things that we as citizens have come to expect of our library. And indeed of many of the organizations, there is a Friends of fundraising arm. So this is not part of town government, but it is an important piece of what the library offers, correct?
Absolutely.
So why don't you tell us about this piece of it, because it's not something you would typically, maybe it's just a step above or outside of the typical book sale. This sounds really, really neat to put a word on it. So.
Yes, we had in the past had adult reads program. So it was a town-wide reads for adults, and a book was selected, and you would have book discussions and a cooking demonstration. One time they had a field trip to see the author, and it culminates with a showing of the movie. So I had been thinking about something we could do for kids, and thought, wouldn't it be great if we could do this for the children? And my immediate thought was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, because Disney had just come out with a wonderful movie that would go nicely with the book, and I don't know a child or an adult who doesn't love that book.
So Laurie, I think it was well received?
Yes, very well received.
How well received?
Margie, I think you have the numbers.
We reached probably about 250 children in the program through all of the activities that we presented.
That's some significant outreach.
It was really fun. we did all kinds of things in connection with the program. The different events that we did all revolved around the themes and things that happened in the book. We had a magic show. We had a magic workshop by Ed Cope, who is Ed the Wizard, and so he came and he did that for did the magic show for just the younger children, the workshop for the older children. We had a crafter who came and did helped kids make shields and swords, and we had the archery program, which was
with Ace Archers.
With Ace Archers, yeah, where kids could meet down at Ace Archers, get archery instruction.
Really?
And and then try their hand
Ace
at the
Archers
skill.
here on Moore Street, of course.
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
So, Barbara, this sounds like it was more than just a single afternoon on the Common.
Oh, it ran for a month, I think, or 3
About
weeks.
3 weeks.
3 weeks of different programs. And I'm a former elementary school teacher, and I was really impressed with the students that I met through the programs, through book discussions that we had. I mean, they were just incredible. The kids were so much into the crafts and behaved fantastically. It was just wonderful to be associated with it.
They really did.
And so with this, was it all done by volunteers, or I'm sure there were some expenses?
Yes, all of the programs had expenses, and that's where the Patriots and the Partners in Patriotism Fund came in, because we knew we couldn't have such an extensive program without some outside funding.
Right.
So it sounds like that outside funding reached over 250 kids in our community, and that seems like a pretty powerful impact.
It was.
So, going to do it again?
We think so.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We
Everyone
think we
asked
will.
when we were going to do it. We're
Really?
going to do it in the fall, in the spring. So it was well received.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that the Partners in Patriotism Fund was able to support this project, and it sounds like it was well worth the while and something that's exciting for the future as well.
Yes.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join and for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Thank
Bob.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
And as we also know, the Partners in Patriotism support community groups and the schools. Long history of the craft organization partnering with Foxborough Public Schools, and there's no reason why the Partners in Patriotism would be any different. I'm joined now by Susan Abrams, who is the principal of the Hearn Middle School here in Foxborough. I'm also joined by Anna
Marcusella.
Marcusella, thank you so much. And Grace Groves. How are you doing today?
Good. What about you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking. See, nobody ever asks the host. Thank you very much. I like you. I also like you too, because you're going to share with us why this important project was funded and what it's all about. And we're talking about the STEM program?
Yeah, it was the Envision the Future program, which was a camp experience for girls in southeastern Massachusetts. There's a organization that supports STEM funding and STEM education, and they put together an opportunity for 42 girls from 17 communities, and they would have an opportunity to go to Bridgewater State College for a week and participate in many different activities. And there was one little catch. The parents only paid a small amount, and the girls had to raise the rest of the amount. That's where...
And that's where the Partners in Patriotism come in.
Exactly.
Now, STEM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math, correct?
Yes.
See, I can't get your last name, but I remembered that. But as we talk about this, it's really, it's been around for a couple years now.
Yeah.
I know that we've heard on school committee meetings some really great opportunities, I guess, for the young ladies. And so can you tell us a little bit about how the people are chosen to go to this?
Well, this particular opportunity came to us through Catherine Honey, who is the community coordinator for the Southeastern Massachusetts STEM Network. And it came across my email, as interesting things do, and I shipped it out to the parents. And the parents and the girls applied for the opportunity, and there were only a few spaces. So Grace and Anna were 2 of the 4 who were selected from the 7 who expressed interest. And we just selected through a lottery because they couldn't accommodate all the people.
Well, it sounds as though it's a very innovative project from what I've heard in the past, and so I guess I'll ask about this year. Was it worth the week? Anna first.
Yeah, it was great. We got to stay in Bridgewater dorms, the brand new ones. They were really, really nice.
Okay.
And I had 3 roommates. And Grace, how many did you have? You had 3.
I had 3 as well. Yeah.
Okay.
And she had a partner room, so she had to sleep with someone else, and then I had my own room. I was kind of lucky. And every day, it was a 5-day camp, and every day we did a different category of STEM. And then on Friday, we had a resource fair where we kind of got to show off everything that we learned, and we could show them to people like Mrs. Abrams.
There we go. So, and Grace, I'll ask you this question. So what was your favorite piece? The S, the T, the E, or the M?
Well, we did a lot of technology things that I really liked. For instance, on the first day, we built robots that could go underwater, and we sent them underwater to retrieve things, various objectives that they had to complete. And
you had to build these?
Yes.
Wow. So it doesn't sound like a typical summer camp.
No.
So that was your was that your project, or did you do another thing that was your project?
No, every girl did that. We did another thing called Makey Makey for our project.
I'm sorry?
And it's called Makey Makey. So how it works is you take different clips.
Alligator clips.
Yes, alligator clips. And you connect something like, you can connect a banana to it, and using that, you can control a computer. For instance, you can pull up a game on a website like Flappy Bird and hook it up to a banana, and tapping the banana, you can play Flappy Bird on the computer.
Oh. Okay. That's pretty innovative. That's actually impressive. I don't understand it, which I guess is why I do this, and you're going to be the future, which is great. So speaking of the future, this camp, the STEM camp, and I want to get the name completely correct, so it's Envision the Future STEM. So speaking of future, how do you think this will help you go forward?
It showed a lot of job opportunities. It told us how you can use STEM in whatever you want to be. And on Thursday night, we had a kind of like a meeting, not a meeting, but a dinner with women who actually work in STEM fields. And we got to meet, I think like almost 100 women who work in the STEM field with jobs from like computer science to even teaching.
Well, it sounds like it was a great educational opportunity as well as a super networking opportunity to see what the future can hold. So is this something that you're going to do going forward, or?
Yes, I think so. As Anna mentioned, we had a dinner with lots of female scientists, engineers, people like that. So I met a woman who actually taught music at an elementary school, and she used the music to show kids how sound waves work and things like that. And I got to talk to her for a while, and I really love music, so she gave me lots of job opportunities, she gave me lots of job examples.
Career guidance, sure, yeah.
For things that I can do with science and music.
Nice, that's something that's interesting to you. So it was a week well spent.
Yes.
Excellent. And it was a week well spent for you too.
Yeah, it was great. I loved it.
Excellent. Well, for the Partners in Patriotism, it sounds like it was a great investment and one that was well received.
Investment in our future.
Investment in our future. Well, you invest in the future every day at the Hearn Middle School, and it's been great meeting you, Anna and Grace. And I really appreciate both of you taking the time to come out and share what you gained from the Partners in Patriotism donation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And as we know, the Partners in Patriotism help individuals in our community. And I'm honored to be joined by Lisa Howland. Lisa, thank you so much for taking the time to come out with us.
Bob. Nice to meet you.
So you're going to have to tell me the story, but we're talking about an individual need, a family in Foxborough, because of a medical issue, needed to have some support, correct?
Yes.
And we're talking about your husband, Brian.
That's correct. My husband had a catastrophic spinal cord injury. He fell 20 feet from a ladder a year ago, August, and he's a quadriplegic. So he's been in the hospital. He just came home July 16th, so he was in the hospital just about 11 months. And we needed to have bathroom renovations. We needed to have backyard walkway put in because of the fact he needed to get to the deck. He has a platform lift that he has to take in order to get into the house. So we had to start way from the beginning of where to begin to do all this work.
My goodness, that must have been catastrophic for the entire family. I cannot imagine going through that.
It was.
And you have 2 grown children?
Yes, I do. I have a son, Kevin, who lives in New York City, and I have a daughter, Allison, in Taunton.
And I'm sure that with all of these supports locally, it still required so much as far as the rehabilitation and getting through the medical piece, and then you're now strapped with the costs and the renovations needed to happen.
Exactly.
What was the process?
What I did was, initially we started the bathroom renovations because we knew that was going to take quite a while. So I was in touch with a gentleman by the name of Paul Nickel. His company is Maribond, and he did the bathroom renovation, but he was very well knowledge of different funds available through the town of Foxborough. And he started me with Tom Marks of the Lions Club.
Tom Marks with the Lions Club, yes.
And then from there, he put me through with Lori McDonald, the discretionary fund.
The Foxborough Discretionary Fund, yes.
Exactly, and then we were able to get through to the Patriot Foundation.
And well, it was a little bit more than that. You
Yes.
went through also, I think you've worked with Dan Krantz
Dan
up at
Krantz,
the stadium.
yes,
He's with
as
the
well.
facilities and has done so much work as far as the physical Patriot Place layout and work on that.
Exactly.
And then of course, with the Partners in Patriotism, I know that you've been in communication with Jim McGowan, who is the
Yes.
chairman. So it sounds as though this is also a great example of a community coming together and people knowing who to contact to make things happen.
It really was. People made it very easy for us once we got the ball rolling. I didn't have to do much of the work at all. People were just there for me to give us a hand to get everything done that had to be done. I went home one day and the whole backyard is already dug up and ready to be laid for the walkway. So I was more than appreciative of what everybody did for us.
It just sounds like such a traumatic injury that happened. I have to ask, how's Brian doing?
He's doing well. He's come a long way. He's still in an electric wheelchair, but he's got a great attitude. He does have movement on one side. His right side is very weak still, but we're working on that. And considering where he was this time last year, he's come a very long way.
My goodness. And so he was able to come home in July?
He came home the day before his birthday, July 16th.
Well, that's good. It must have been a great birthday present.
It was. It certainly was. It was great to have him home. It's been 11 months is a long time to be away from home.
And so the Partners in Patriotism created the funding to make all of this happen.
Exactly.
What if the PIP was not around? What would have happened?
We would have had to somehow come up with the money ourselves. We had no choice. We would have had to do it, and we would have done whatever we would have had to do to prepare to get my husband home. And with the funding, it made it so much easier. I didn't have to worry about the money, where it was going to come from, especially being my husband was out of work, and I'm not sure if he'll work again, but he was out of work, almost a year by that point. So we were very grateful for all the help we could get.
Sounds like you've had a lot of challenges, and it's a good thing that this funding source was available.
Yes, we were very grateful, and my husband is overwhelmed by all the generosity of people in the town of Foxborough.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story with us here in Foxborough Central, and I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you very much. Hopefully things will get better. They can only get better. He is doing very well. It's only uphill from here.
I'm so glad to hear. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope that was all right.
They're from the heart, and I think each one shows in a different way, again, how the Partners in Patriotism Fund has become quickly an integral part of what we in Foxborough consider the support and the backbone of doing a lot of the things that we like to do or we want to do, and I think our community is stronger for it. So again, I'm joined with Olivia Binks and Jim McGowan, who with the Partners in Patriotism Fund vet the applications and do all the work necessary to research and approve the donation requests. So I'm going to ask a very nuts and bolts question. When an application comes in, what happens first, Jim?
We receive the applications prior to the meeting so we can review them, so they're not jumping out at us as we go to the meeting. We'll float any follow-up that we might have to do beforehand. We'll try to get as much information as we can. We meet once a month on Monday nights at the end of the month. We bring each application forward, talk about its merits, open up a group of discussion, make a motion on the grant, and have a discussion and vote on them. Not all of them pass, a lot do.
I was just going to ask that, Olivia. What happens when things don't pass?
We make sure we reach back out to the applicant to let them know the decision. And you had asked a question earlier around sort of the network of assistance, right? So this is just one avenue and outlet for folks. I think what's great about the board that we have assembled is folks have different connections saying, you know what about the discretionary fund? Or hey, on a past experience I had, I saw X, Y, and Z happen. And so where we can, we try to help to network across people, obviously within our boundaries and respecting the goal that the board has.
Sure. So I'm going to give you the last word here in a second. I just want to remind everybody again that if you're interested in learning more or in making an application to the Partners in Patriotism Fund, you can log on to the Gillette Stadium website, www.gillettestadium.com, and /partners-in-patriotism. And that will bring you to the application. Fill it out, send it in, and then you'll get the ball rolling. Olivia, we'll start with you because we let the king go last. So Olivia, a last word from you.
Absolutely. I think Susan Abrams put it best. This is an investment in our future. And when we think about it, it's the community's future with things like the Sam Burns Garden, even the dugouts. It's the future of our kids with things like the reading grant and being able to send the girls to the STEM camp. Yes. What an incredible experience. And then it's also for the future of the families as we think about the Howlands and many other folks. So it really, she summed it up beautifully. It's the investment in our future as a community.
Wonderful. Jim?
I have to follow that. It's been fun. It's really been rewarding. It was, when we all joined up in the beginning, we all had different stories and different backgrounds, and we sort of come together and sort of come to a consensus. And we're doing a lot of good work, and it's very rewarding. Every meeting is different. It's different grants, different opportunities, and it's really been fun and rewarding for all of us.
Olivia, Jim, thank you so much for taking the time to come out and share your story, as well as bringing those 3 participants to share their stories with us. Truly an uplifting episode of Foxborough Central. And folks, I hope you have learned a little bit about the Partners in Patriotism Fund, and join me in thanking the Kraft organization, Robert Kraft, and the entire team assembled up at the stadium who make this happen. Jess Anderson, Jeremy Smith, the folks who really give you the support and allow you to have this wonderful opportunity, volunteering your time to turn around and give back to the community.
Thanks for having us on.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming out, and thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Foxborough Central. Particular thanks to my wonderful volunteers, Mike Stewart, Deb Storrs, Betty Travers, Paul Beck, and our wonderful editor who puts us all together and flies in those pictures that you love so much, Jillian Larson. On behalf of all of us here at Foxborough Cable Access, take care, everybody.